Robert Largan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to use the limited time I have available to highlight some of the many challenges that this House and the next Prime Minister must face when we return from the summer recess. The number one issue facing the country right now is inflation. As we've all seen, inflation hit 9.4% in June, the highest level in 40 years, and it's expected to climb even further. Inflation strips away the value of the pound in our pocket, hitting every aspect of our economy. People's savings are eroded, pushing home ownership out of reach, and reducing the value of pensions that people have worked long and hard for. Our export market is made less competitive, limiting investment, jobs and growth. And I'm particularly concerned about those on fixed and lower incomes and their real-term take-home pay getting hit the most. Of course, we all know about what's driving this pressure, the rising demand in China, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, compounded by COVID and the disruption in global supply chains. And as a result, the energy price cap is now due to rise 65% in October, taking typical bills to around £3,240 per year and rising again in January. And I welcome the package of measures the government have already put in place to mitigate those price rises, with one-third of households set to receive £1,200 each. But tough choices lie ahead, and it is incumbent on members across the House to be honest with the public about this, and to be honest with ourselves. During the heatwave of recent days, many have reflected on the similarities with 1976. And it's not just the weather, industrial strife, nationalist demands for a referendum, a prime ministerial resignation, a leadership contest, energy prices soaring globally following conflict. There is very real risk that we may be heading towards a wage price spiral and stagflation of the 1970s too. And at the same time, our fiscal room for manoeuvre is increasingly small. Quantitative easing and pump priming the housing market are no longer viable options, if indeed they ever were. And we're facing a demographic crunch with an ageing population and fewer people of working age, meaning that the demands of the state grow while raising tax revenue becomes more and more difficult. If we're not careful, we're going to end up with Scandinavian levels of taxation for Mediterranean levels of public services. And now is not the time for telling people what they want to hear. We must put pragmatism ahead of ideology. We need a functioning state, not an ever smaller one. And to those who disagree, I'd encourage them to check their inboxes and talk to their constituents. They're all full of emails of people struggling to get driver's licences or passports or having their GP appointments or routine procedures delayed. This needs hard-headed, mature judgment and grown-up politics, not pandering to nostalgia. I'm also increasingly alarmed about the failure of investigative policing in this country. A recent report found that police had failed to solve a single burglary in nearly half of the country's neighbourhoods over the past 3 years. Other forces have been found to willfully neglect investigation of reports of child abuse and grooming gangs for fear of stoking racial tensions. And we have botched murder investigations due to officers' homophobia. Meanwhile, mild-mannered comedians are being investigated for telling jokes. In Britain, policing is by consent, and it's dangerous for democracy and the rule of law when this trust breaks down. The next Prime Minister urgently needs a plan to rebuild investigative policing and confidence in our police. Again, this will need serious pragmatic leadership and a willingness to face facts and level with the British people. So to conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, we're facing high inflation, anaemic growth, disrupted supply chains, a dysfunctional energy market, a demographic crunch, alarming shifts in climate, a national child exploitation scandal, national security threats at home and abroad, an increasingly divided society, and declining trust in our politics. But on a brighter note, rain is forecast this weekend. And on that, Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank you, all the amazing staff in this place and colleagues. I wish them all a happy summer, and also to my amazing staff who work for me, both here and in the constituency. Since I was elected 2.5 years ago, we've taken up over 40,000 individual cases and respond to over 75,000 emails. They do an amazing job, and I'm proud to have them work for me. Have a lovely summer, everyone.
Anna Firth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is an honour.